Once you commit something, you become a slave to that. It's inevitable. And you're going to live with it forever. Nasalullah al-afiyah. The best thing is never to start in the first place. Don't do it at all, especially when you are young. For the young men who've not yet found themselves in situations, dirty situations, such as zina, riba. By zina I mean adultery. By riba I mean consuming interest, beer drinking, and other things which Allah has forbidden. The best thing is not to start in the first place, because once you do it, you will be a slave forever. You will be a slave forever. It will be a point of reference every time. 20 years later, 30 years later, people will say, this is what he did. This ma'siyah comes to haunt us. And I say that another time, if you do something bad today, and Allah does not expose you, or Allah doesn't punish you, don't think it's over. Do not think it's over and the chapter is closed. A person may commit zina today and nothing happens, and he thinks, well, I do zina privately and nothing has happened to me. Sins sometimes come to haunt us 20 years later and 30 years later, or even 40 years later. Sometimes you don't know what is happening in your life, but you've forgotten the haram that you planted in the past. You've become a slave to that haram. So he is advising him. He says, my son, young man, I admire your pure white shirt. You've not yet fallen into ma'siyah. You haven't detoned your shirt. Therefore, don't detonate. Don't begin. Because once you begin, you will become a slave. If you fall into ma'siyah, the ma'siyah is going to stick, probably into your old age. There are certain bad habits and acts of disobedience which people started at an early age, maybe when they were 15 or 16 years old, and those bad habits have stuck into their old age. He smoked his first cigarette when he was 15 years old, and he thought it was a passing phase. He thought, well, it's some of those things we enjoy when we are young. But he became a slave. From the age of 15 until the age of 70, 75, he couldn't quit. It became slavery. And that is the way ma'siyah is. Disobedience is like that. Before you touch anything Allah has forbidden, I'm speaking to you, the young man especially. Before you touch anything Allah has forbidden, tell yourself, this has the potential of turning me into a slave until I die. You tell yourself that. Remind yourself before you touch it. Before you touch that cigarette, tell yourself, I could become a slave of this until I'm put in my grave. Before you begin zina, akramakumullah, before you begin fornication, tell yourself, I could become a slave to this fornication until I'm put in my grave. And so every ma'siyah. And this is wonderful advice which Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri gives to the young man. What is the advice? Don't start. Don't start. Your shirt is still clean. As for us, our white shirts are now cream